Hi, this is Chris Hawkins, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Daz. This is my football and music one-on-one episodes where I bring on a guest that is into football and into music. And who better than house music legend and head of iconic record label Junior Boy's Own that had the likes of Underworld, Dust Brothers, aka Chemical Brothers, Express 2. It's Mr. Terry Farley. How are you, mate?
I'm okay, thank you. Big win last night against the Manx, but I left early like an idiot, and I missed it. So it's a bittersweet day.
Yeah. Well, I want to. We'll talk about because you are a Chelsea supporter. So please, everybody go easy on him. But I want to go back to your musical roots. Let's start there. Like what was 15-year-old Terry listening to in his house?
I basically grew up as a kid in North Kensington, kind of Notting Hill and Notting Dale, around there. So the music of the streets really was Tamla Motown and reggae. So I got into black music, and very early I become very much a black music snob. As I tend to sort of, whenever I tend to get into things, whether that's clothes or music or whatever it is, I tend to sort of go in feet first. And with reggae, I used to go to Shepherd's Bush Market and hang out where the reggae shops were there, and buy at least one record a week with my pocket money. And I was into, like, in 19 sort of what year we looking at? 15. So when I was 15, I had a paper round then, so I could buy kind of music. I think I would say I was like into Big Youth and Dennis Brown and Gregory Isaacs, but also very much like the records coming out of America, like KC and the Sunshine Band, Kool and the Gang, Wild and Peaceful album was kind of an LP that kind of opened my mind to, what was really modern in music in America.
Mm-hmm. And how did that go from, like, did the fanzine start first, or did the record label come first? Which
no. The Boys Own, the fanzine, started first. I had been very much into the End magazine, the Liverpool magazine. They even printed a couple of my really stupid letters. I wrote them, and Hooten kind of, every time I speak to him, he laughs about it. I think I was, I wrote a letter about what people were wearing at Chelsea at that time, and they printed it. And I'd always liked fanzines and printed stuff. Mm-hmm. I bought Blues and Soul magazine religiously, black music religiously, The Face, ID, and I just thought, we could do one of these for ourselves, and kind of had a little kind of blueprint of, I knew what fanzines were about. Fanzines were about creating a little world of your own, and you write about what you want and what you are, and if there's enough people who are like you, they buy it. And you also need to get a few enemies, so you need to sort of be able to find people to take the piss out of, basically. And we followed a blueprint that was very much the End, but it was also even Sniffing Glue. That was another fanzine. I didn't like punk at all, but I used to buy that magazine because they used to sell it in rough trade, and I used to, so I Boyzone wasn't anything new. It was just kind of a continuation of a tradition, really.
Well, I mean, it's crazy to think, obviously you started with Andrew Weatherall, the governor, Simon Eccles and Steve Maves. I mean, were you just all mates? Like, did you all meet at Rough Trade? Were you?
No. We were mates. Andrew and Simon lived in Windsor, and me and Steve lived in Slough. And basically the M4 goes down the middle of the two towns, and Slough was a pretty kind of it was a very, very working class town, and it had a terrible reputation around that time. But there was a lot of kids in Slough who were really, really into soul music and disco and funk. So we had a good scene in Slough. But the other side of the motorway, once you got into Windsor Town Centre, it was a little bit kind of, the girls were a bit nicer, and, it was a bit safer. You didn't get there's no chance of getting nutted on a night out by some sort of horrible person. So we used to go over there and hang out with Andrew, who was really young. I mean, I was probably about 21, and he was probably about 17 then. And we used to hang out in a pub called the Adam and Eve with them, which was a bit of a goth pub. And we didn't kind of, you didn't get goths in Slough. But it was quite nice. And, he was a very clever kid. And when we decided to do the fanzine, he was the obvious person for me to kind of ask to kind of help with the logistics of it all.
And how did the record label then come about? Because I know you and Pete did the Fire Island in what, 91, 92?
No, I think about, I don't know, about 90. I mean, but that Junior Boys come out, Junior Boyzone come after Boyzone Productions, which was basically me around about 89, 90. I got asked by Hooten to remix Stepping Stone, The Farm. And I'd never been in a studio. Andrew got asked to go and do Loaded. He'd never been in a studio. And that was just simply because of the parties we were doing. We were doing these, the Boyzone parties, and we were getting a lot of pop people coming along, just as punters. Kevin Rowland used to come. We had Banana Rama. We had Martin Fry from ABC. And Bobby Gillespie come down. I think Andrew, I'm not sure. I think Andrew had been a big Jesus and the Mary Chain fan. And they just, do you want to remix the record? And we were like, yeah, we've done a couple of remixes. And Pete Tong, who I had been DJ, my first ever gigs really as a DJ, I was at a club called The Raid, which was like, there was nights at the WAG, there was nights in film studios and warehouse parties. So this was like 86, 87. And myself, Paul Oakenfold and Pete Tong were the three residents. And Pete was, he had the dance side at London Records sewn up, and he said, do you want to do a label? And we were like, oh, okay, what do we have to do? He goes, make a record. Oh, right, okay. Here's a load of money. Me, Andrew, and Pete, and a really good producer, Hugo Nicholson, went into a very posh studio in 1989. It was about £1,000 a day, and we made "Raise Your Hands," which is the Boca Juniors record. And that was it, really. I mean, I thought of the name, managed to spell the word Boca wrong on the label, which is a kind of running theme with me, actually, with fanzines. I managed to. We also wrote the first article. Paul Oakenfold wrote it, but he wouldn't let us use his name because there was a lot of there was a lot of talk about drugs in it. The very first article about that kind of acid house scene at Amnesia with Alfredo, and because I used to do the layout of the magazine at home with Electroset, on a piece of cards and a piece of white A4, and we would take that to the printer friend we knew who would actually make like these metal plates, and I spelt Balearic wrong.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, but not, but not in the headline. The headline was Bermondsey goes Balearic, and spelling has never ever been one of my pluses. So we did and then it was. I mean, the Boys Own Productions records. We put some great records out. We really did, but it was too early. The Mondays hadn't kind of blown up. The Farm hadn't really blown up either. And if we had come maybe a year later after, that kind of whole scene had been kind of, blown up, I think we would have had much more success. But we were kind of, it's always, someone said to me, never be the people at the beginning. Always be the people who come second, because they're the people who make money. The ones at the beginning, you'll have people talking about you in 20 years' time, but you'll be penniless. And the people who come second or even third, they're the ones who make the money, because that's when the majority of the people are into that music.
So where did the change come from then, from Boys Own to Junior Boys Own?
Well, we got dropped basically by Pete Tong because we just wasn't selling enough records. We were selling, to a very small scene, which was, at that time kind of terms the Balearic network. There was a club in Liverpool, which was Cream in its very early stages. There was Most Excellent in Manchester. There was Venus in Nottingham. There was a place in Middlesbrough. Oh, Charlie Chester got involved with him. I can't think of the name of it, but that was kind of about it, really. So, we were only selling a few thousand records, and they had put quite a lot of money into the idea. So we got dropped, but the length of our contract meant there was some money to keep an office going. So, we decided to sort of do a diffusion range, if you want. John Paul Gaultier was doing Junior Gaultier at that time, which was very popular in London, and we was like, oh, right, we'll call it Junior Boys Own then. And that was the right label at the right time, as opposed to our previous incarnation being the right label at the wrong time.
I mean, Pete Tong must be kicking himself, though. I mean, you go from Boys Own to, you're just changing a name, really. And Underworld, like I said, Express 2, and then Dust Brothers. Yeah, it wasn't just a name. Boys Own, the records that come out in Boys Own were very kind of, they were Balearic records, there was all sorts of records. Less Stress, Don't Dream It's Over. But they were kind of Balearic records for that time, sitting in a field, doing a pill, watching the sun come up. Whereas Junior Boys Own was about house music. Mm-hmm. And I think at that time, FFR, which was Pete Tong's, the parent label, they were a house label. So we would have just been like, I think we would have just got lost. It was the right time for Junior Boys Own. Yeah, I mean, it's just an iconic label. it's the pinnacle for for me, growing up. I mean, I had the best of both worlds, living outside of Liverpool, and then moving over to the States. So I knew house music from back home and then house music in the States. And I actually saw the Dust Brothers, their first appearance was in Orlando at the DJ Icy's place. And they're in the outside, backstage. Icy and Josh Wink were inside and it was rammed. But outside, it was Dust Brothers, Bassbin Twins, and a lad called DJ Who from Baltimore. And that was actually the first time I'd ever heard the Dust Brothers. And they just blew me away. And then after that, I was like tracking down every Junior Boyne's own track.
I think what happened with them was Andrew was playing a gig in Manchester. And he said that there was a couple of kids from the home counties come up to him with a cassette and said, "Oh, we're big fans of yours and we've made this record. What do you think of it?" And I don't know how he'd listened to it, but he come in the office on Monday and said, "This record's great. You've got to release this." And Steve asked, he said, "Come in, listen to it. What do you think?" And kind of wasn't really my thing. I'm kind of like an American black music house fan, and it wasn't, but you could tell it was really good. And I was kind of like, well, look, if you and Andrew both think it's really good, let's go with it, And obviously they had to change their name because there was an American hip hop band called the Dust Brothers.
Yeah, still to this day, Song of the Siren, the Sabres mix is one of my favourites.
Yeah.
It's just from start to finish, It's one of those where, I mean, I DJ as well, but sometimes, this generation have got a span of like 2-3 minutes of listening to a record. That record you just play from start to finish. I mean,
I'm afraid that's TikTok for you. You know that. It's reducing their attention span. I noticed that it's not a new thing. I noticed it about 8 years ago. Me and Pete played in Turin, and we walked in this club, and it was really, really jumping. I was fucking hell, this is going to be good. And then kind of I noticed that the guy was only playing 3 minutes of a record, 4 minutes of record, and me and Pete, when we used to play together a lot, we used to play records we liked, and we would really let them records play, some 8-9 minute records. And it was, for us, it was about the flow. And kind of, I don't really like that, taking people on journey stuff. Sounds a bit pretentious, but if you really like a record, you should let it play. And we lost the crowd, we lost it. It was, you could see that they just wasn't kind of, they wasn't there for that kind of vibe. So, and it's only getting worse because of TikTok and people's, especially younger people's attention span.
Yeah, well, it seems to be like with records as well, like you'd have a dub plate or a white label. And I was having a chat with Mark XTC yesterday. And you know how when you used to play vinyl, you get chain spotters, but then you'd put like stickers over the actual names. These days you just pick up your phone and you got in front of the speaker, and then it's online within 20 minutes, and that takes the romanticism out of the scene a bit. It was always great to hear tracks that you've never heard before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gave the track time to build as well, rather than kind of like, I've noticed with myself, actually, I'll probably sort of, I managed to find at least 5 or 6 records I really like every week. either from a promo or buying them from Bandcamp or Traxsource, and I'll play them that weekend. But by the next weekend, there's probably only one of them records I'm still playing, whereas back in the day, if you got a test press in, there would only be like 20 people with that test pressing in the country. And, you could be playing that for 3 months before that record come out.
Mm-hmm.
And, the crowd really got to know it, whereas I don't think they really do now. I think, I think DJs seem to think that the whole night is more about their performance than what they play.
Spot on. I 100% agree with you. I mean, I think it's weird especially for yourself. You've been in the scene for a very long time. I've been in the scene for 40 years as well. And, times do change. We've got to change with the times, but it's just, it's hard to, go to a show now and everybody has their phone out instead of taking, back in the day, no phones, it's just, it's that moment lives in my brain. I can still, I had my crazy times as everyone else has, but you still remember, but people,
absolutely.
People seem to think they need to capture everything on a phone to be reminded, and I'm like, well, you have a mind, just take it in.
There is also there's also a kind of trend now with clubs banning phones. Certain clubs, will tell, but there's also, I think I've noticed, especially with kind of slightly more mature crowds, there's a bit of self-policing now. People get a phone out and hold the phone up, and you can see people all look, disapproving looks really, and they tend to put it back in their pocket a bit quickly, and
well, you don't.
You can be snobbish about all that, but it is about the moment. It is about your experience, not the experience through the lens. Isn't it? And it's the same. It's the same at football. When you've got to see people, and I don't know, there's a penalty, and they're holding their phone. You'll be able to watch that on telly, and you don't need it on your phone. It's going to look shit. It's going to sound shit.
Yeah.
That great atmosphere that you're going to be in when that penalty goes in, was going to really transfer badly to your phone. You're going to go, I thought it was a lot better than that when I was there.
Well, it's the same. Do you need a phone to dance? No, you don't.
No, you don't.
But before I want to get into Chelsea, I obviously, I think I have to need to bring up Underworld. Getting them onto Junior Boys Own. How did that come about? Because they did
that was Darren Emerson. Yeah, basically it was Darren Emerson. Darren was DJing at Nicky Holloway's Monday night weekly party called the Recession Session, I believe, at the Milk Bar, which was next to the Astoria on Tottenham Court Road. And he was from Romford. And he was like 18 years old, but really good DJ. Really good DJ. He played it. We did a party down on the coast, and I remember him cutting 2 copies of Treaty by Euphalindi. Do you remember that record?
Yeah, I do.
Like with all the kind of Aboriginal noises going on, and he was cutting from one to another, and it just went on forever. And I was just like, "Fucking hell, who is this kid?" And then he'd met the two guys who were Underworld, but I'm not sure if they were actually called Underworld at that time, because I think they'd been a previous incarnation. And where I think they were maybe just like an electronic band, pop band as opposed to dance band. And I believed it kind of, he started working with them. And then he again come into Steve Hall in the Junior Boys' own offices with some tapes and let's have a listen to this. And, Steve saw the potential and, gave them money to go and make some music. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's some music. I mean, there's Cowgirl, Born Slippy are instilled in electronic music history. I mean, it just goes on from there. But let's get to your one of your favourite parts is Chelsea Football Club. When was the first time you went to Stamford Bridge?
I used to live walking distance to Queen's Park Rangers ground, and all my family were Rangers fans, and I used to get taken to Rangers by my dad. And this is like about 69, 70, and he used to put me in a boys' pen in the loft end, and we played. We played, right? QPR had just won the cup. They won the League Cup in 1967. They beat West Brom, and QPR were in the third division then. Incredible kind of thing to do for a third division team to win a cup final. And there was a testimonial for a player called Mick Leach, or was it Mike Keane? One of them, I think. No, maybe Mike Keane. And QPR played Chelsea, and I was in the boys' pen, and it was a really nice sunny day. So I presume it was pre-season, maybe about 1968, and I watched like this big gang of kids, maybe 200-300, walk. You could walk right around the ground back in them days, walk from what was the away end up down the sideline into the loft, and kind of went up the back of the loft. And the clothes they were wearing, they were all in like kind of pastel stay press and Ben Sherman's, Dr. Martin boots, and a lot of them were wearing shoes, they were called Timpson's Royals, but they were like wingtip brogues. And most of these kids were like 14, 15, and I was about 10. And I was like, fucking hell, I want to be a Chelsea fan. It literally was, about the look and about the clothes, and it was like, I've got to go to Chelsea. And it was like, no, you can't go to Chelsea. You're too young. You're not allowed on the bus. Didn't know anyone who supported Chelsea. Everyone who I knew in that part of London was Queen's Park Rangers. So I never went. And then my family got moved out to Slough, and Slough was like a kind of, imagine like Runcorn is to Liverpool and Manchester. That's what Slough is to like West London. And everyone was Chelsea in Slough. All their families had been moved out from Fulham and from Battersea, and it was all Chelsea. And, once I kind of hit 13, I could get a paper round. And I went up to Chelsea, and I think the first game I went to was Bobby Charlton's last game. And I went up when we got in the ground early, and it was packed. I mean, there was 60,000 people in the ground that game. And I just remember being in the shed, and it was just like seething mass of teenage testosterone. And, it was totally different from what QPR was like. QPR was, a really kind of passionate, local kind of crowd, loads of kind of men, grown men, very funny blokes. Whereas Chelsea it was just teenage rampage. Mm-hmm. It was just, and I completely hooked. I was completely hooked. And by about 75, I was going to away games as well.
Yeah, it's I think the away games are much better because it's the travelling that with all your mates that you do, especially when you play in Europe. But Liverpool and Chelsea, I think it took us a long time to kind of have a big rivalry. It wasn't until probably I would say like the ghost goal from Luis Garcia, where it really started.
I would say for a lot of people, it might have been the '82 game in the FA Cup at Chelsea. When there was, it was it '82? It was '82, yeah. When there was quite a lot of shenanigans going on from very early in the morning at Warren Street to very late at night at Euston. And in the way end, I mean, it was quite a classic kind of game that for that era, where like clothes become really important, what you're wearing, and I mean, from then, I also think it's like there was a whole thing about like wasn't there like Scousers, Manx, and Cockneys, But I think you're right. Probably the kind of that kind of like on the field rivalry probably was then, because we were awful then. We did beat you in that game, and we also beat you in the '78 FA Cup game at Chelsea, 4-2, I think. And but no, it was probably then. You're right.
Yeah, I think with the Mourinho and like Benitez thing, you know, I mean, I Mourinho back then to me was an amazing tactician, but he also had that little quirky sense of humour that I think he's lost it a bit. Back then he was kind of cocky with the media and everything. Now he was
young. He was young. We're all cocky when we're young. We're all cocky and quirky. And and we all have our best ideas when we're young. There's still a lot of people at Chelsea. Even like last night, people were, when we were 3-2 down, and people were going, "Get him out of the club, get Poch out, get Jose back to the end of the season, interim manager," which I think would be an absolute disaster. Yeah. But that people still love him at Chelsea. They still love him at Chelsea.
Well, I mean, he won, the titles for you, and but I mean, that's modern day football, Terry. Something goes wrong on the pitch, it's this player's fault. Sack the manager. We're too quick to, kind of. I mean, you can criticise your team. I mean, Klopp's got it wrong sometimes on bringing subs on, taking players off. You can criticise, but then when you start like just screaming for them to be sacked or this player, sod off, it's just like, come on, lad. Potts just, I mean, to me, he's a fantastic manager. He just needs to sort out like who his first 11 really are. I mean, Cole Palmer, for me, has saved your season.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if they don't sort it out next season, they'll be off. I could see, sort of someone, probably not an English club, because I don't think he would go straight away to an English club. But I could see him leaving if we're this shit next season. I could see, Bayern Munich or Barcelona coming in for him, and him quite happily going. He hasn't got any ties with Chelsea, any allegiance. Well,
I saw that interview. I think it was last week, and it was pitch side, and they were just like, thank God Chelsea have you, and he was just kind of like, basically, yeah. I mean, I can't believe City let him go. I really can't, because he's a fantastic footballer, and he looks like he's got a good head on his shoulders, mature for his age. And I think, the sky's...
I think basically, Foden is 18 months ahead of him in his development, and he was always going to be number one. Mm-hmm. So he knew he wasn't going to get, and I think they just let him go because, they have Foden, who is a better player at the moment by far.
Yeah, he's banging him in, and he's probably doing helping City because I mean to me, City haven't been as good as last season. Letting Mahrez, Gudjongen go, I think, is massive for them. But what were your expectations like? At the start of this season, like realistic, like what?
I didn't really know. Really, I think Americans really should be kept away from British football. American owners, I think, I really, really, really don't. I can't see. I don't think the ones at Liverpool have been great. The Arsenal, they had American owners. They ripped the arse out of a side that just won the Champions League and then won the World Club title. I thought we would be top four, right? And I thought the first game of the season when we played Liverpool, and we were by far the better side. All these kids. We all thought, "Wow, here we go," but that didn't last long. I don't know. I don't know. I've got no idea what's going to happen next year. I think they really have to bite the bullet and buy some experience. An experienced number 9 and an experienced centre half. We got centre halves and they're children, really.
Yeah. Well, I just think Bowley just went to the supermarket and bought everything. I think that's what his problem was. And Pochettino should have kind of said, "Hold on a minute, I don't need all these young players." But I just think he went with it, and I think that's why you are where you are at this moment. But I mean, you're in a FA Cup semi-final. I mean, it is against it is against City, but you never know. It's a one-off.
You never know. I didn't give us a chance about beating them in Porto either. In the Champions League final, didn't give us a hope in hell. We pulled it off. But then we sold the two players who Mason Mount and Kai Havertz, who the creator of the goal and the scorer of the goal. We flogged both of those off, and we bought some children to take their place, and it's just bizarre. It's bizarre.
And a couple of points with that win last night. A couple of points from 7th. So anything can happen. I mean, for you, for myself, if Liverpool were in 10th and we're only 3 points behind in 7th, I probably would want to give Europa Conference League a miss.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Although it is the only club competition we haven't won now because it wasn't there. So maybe maybe being the team who's actually. Because I think it's only Man United, Liverpool, and Chelsea, isn't it, who in England who have won all the competitions?
No, we haven't won Europa League.
Did you not? I thought you won.
No,
really?
You
did. You did a kind
of the Cup Winners' Cup, but Klopp's never won Europa League.
But Liverpool have. When
it was called the European Cup Winners' Cup, yeah. But not the new Europa League thing. We haven't.
Right. I think the Cup Winners' Cup. They just got rid of that though, didn't they? Yeah. And the Europa League. Did Liverpool not win that with Michael Owen in Spain? About when you did a kind of a plastic treble, didn't you?
Yeah, when we beat Alaves. Yeah.
I think that was yeah. I think the Europa Cup used to be called the Fairs Cup, didn't it?
Something like that, yeah. But I think Europa League.
So anyway, you're right. I mean, I've got no interest in a kind of dodgy Thursday night trip to Hungary anymore. So I think we'd be better off staying out of it.
I agree. I'd be the same way, but it's a funny old world where you can end up. I'm hoping we're challenging for the title. And hopefully you get Europa. It's a swan song for good old Klopp. But I just think it's been crazy the last 3 seasons between us and your team. Being in 3 finals, and only really scored. Yeah, we only scored one goal. Yeah, it's been. We've always had a tough time against Chelsea. You've always had our number. I remember the 4-4 at Stamford Bridge.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was insane. It was just goal back, goal back, goal back.
There was another good one, wasn't there? When Mark Hughes and when was that? Were we 2-0 down and we ended up beating you 4-2 in an FA Cup game?
Yeah.
Farley, I think, scored. That was a really good Chelsea side then. The late 90s was a really good Chelsea side. We had Farley, we had the centre half from Frank Leboeuf, and it was a really, really good side. That we nearly won the title. I remember. I think we had to win the last 2 games or something, and I went to Miami for the Miami Music Week conference. Where everyone went. And we were trying to find. We were trying to find somewhere to find. I think Chelsea were playing someone shit at home, and I was trying to find somewhere to watch the game. There was no internet, and I remember couldn't find anywhere. And I remember we're walking along. It would be like. It didn't have a mobile phones. It would be like, maybe when I get back to the hotel, I can use their phone to ring home, see what the score was. And I'm pretty sure it was Giles Peterson was walking along the road and he went, "Oh, you only got a draw." It was drawn against Leicester. We 2-0 up against Leicester. And we blew it. We blew it. And Farley was right. And Farley was the manager then. And Bates, because we blew the title, the league title that year, he sacked him, which was absolute tragedy. We won a couple. We won the FA Cup twice and the League Cup and the European Cup Winners' Cup in that little period in the late 90s with Vialli and Ruud Gullit. And Di Matteo. Yeah, we had a really good, very attractive side to watch, but we definitely blew the title. We should have won the title in that period.
Well, to me, Ballack, Drogba was one of the best footballers I've seen. He just had everything, physicality, just technical, just absolutely brilliant. I think, another one's Kante. Love Kante. I wish he, would have been 10 years younger and Liverpool would have picked him up, So there are some I wish we never had Joe Cole, I'll tell you that. That was waste of money.
Yeah, but I see Joe Cole might have been one of Mourinho's failures. What he wanted Joe Cole to do instead of sort of letting him, express himself, I don't know. I mean, I think the Drogba thing might be, it's like, I remember when Drogba first played for Chelsea, I think we played Newcastle, and in the paper it had, I remember the reporter saying, he was like a young boy chasing a balloon around a park, he couldn't. And the Newcastle fans were all singing, "What a waste of money, him! What a waste of money!" And we were all like, "Oh!" And Mourinho, I think, got interviewed, and he said, "Look, don't judge Drogba by this season. Judge Drogba when he leaves Chelsea at the end of his career. And maybe, some of them kids at Chelsea now, maybe we do that and judge them then. I don't know.
Yeah.
Will anyone get that sort of time anymore?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I think that's what I'll miss about Klopp the most, is he's given these young kids the chance to shine, and they've all done it. I mean, Conor Bradley, like, coming in for Trent, like, Trent's Trent. Whether people can discuss, like, is he a good defender? You know what? He brings more to the team. Like, the team's set up for Trent to play the way he plays.
Yeah, sure.
He goes forward, then Henderson would come back in that space. But Conor Bradley, 18 years old, to come in. If he had a bad game, I'm sure people in the stands would be, that he's too young and blah blah. We've got to give these young players a chance to shine. And I think, too many people are too judgmental too quickly. So we've got to. But what I usually end with, Terry, is I'll ask my musical guest, ultimate headline festival for a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday day. So your headliners for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And are these are people in their prime or now?
It's whether alive or dead. Who would you?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I would go Friday. I would go for kind of funky vibe, and I would go for. I'm trying to think of the really good bands I saw back in the day. I would go for the Fatback Band on a Friday night. I saw them at the California Ballroom in Dunstable in 1977, and it was 5,000 people standing up in there, and it was like a football ground. And in fact, a lot of the kids in there were people who went to football, and they started chanting, "Bring on the Fatback, bring on the Fatback." And when the band come on, they looked fucking terrified because of the reception they got. It was like crazy, but they were a brilliant funk band. So I'd have Fatback Band on Friday night. Saturday night, I would have Marvin Gaye. I saw him at the Royal Albert Hall about in the early 80s, and he is absolute class. And Sunday afternoon, Big Youth. He was someone who I was obsessed with, and he was a real kind of like, during that punk rock era, all the punks like Big Youth, and I wasn't a punk. I've always been a soul boy, but he was great, and I saw him in a pub in Lewisham about 4 years ago called the Fox and Firkin, where they put on reggae bands, and there was only about 200 people in there, and he's probably early 70s, and he was fantastic. It was absolutely amazing. So yeah, them three.
Nice. Any gigs coming up for you?
Oh God, I'm in Brighton tomorrow. I've got festivals this summer. I've got Shindig, which is a really good festival down in the West Coast. I'm going to Malta, Croatia, Italy, Ibiza, and I might take myself to New York. I haven't been to New York for a long time. I might just go for a little holiday.
There you go. Well, I live in Texas, so
wow,
yeah. I would love for you to come here. It would, do you still do you do Southport Weekender at all?
No, me and Pete played there once back in the day, and we didn't go down particularly well, to be quite honest with you. We at that time we were going to New York a lot, and we were going to a club called the Sound Factory, where Junior Vasquez was playing, and we'd become a bit obsessed with that kind of hard, kind of
darker sound.
darker, gay New York sound. And it didn't work in Southport, not at all. Never got asked back. I'd love to do it. I mean, I heard, I heard really good things. Funny enough, the Southport Weekender now is in Bognor Regis.
Yeah, they've changed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew people who went a couple, like last month it was, and they said, Ron Trent apparently was absolutely amazing, and it was a really good event. So I would like to go, even if they're not asking me to DJ. Maybe I'll go along and as a punter,
sit in the deck chair.
Yeah.
Well, Terry, it's been an absolute pleasure. You are embedded in my musical history and what you've done for acid house and house music. I couldn't thank you anymore. Obviously I'm a Liverpool supporter, you're a Chelsea supporter, but I really appreciate you coming on and kind of, giving your kind of opinion on what's going on in the stands, the chants. The horrible chanting needs to stop. It's just, it's grown men. It's 50, 60-year-old men saying horrible things that these young kids are picking up on, and they're singing it and they don't understand what they're really singing. That needs to stop. But, I appreciate you coming on and, spending a little time with me.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Daz. Appreciate it.